Welcome to the channel. Join us as we delve into the darkest corners of the human experience, sharing spine-tingling true stories that will leave you breathless. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment of terror. Get ready to be chilled to the bone as we embark on this spine-tingling journey together. I could still remember those nights like they were yesterday. The Walmart I worked at had its own share of eccentricities, but its overnight tranquility was eerily soothing, with occasional fluorescent lights flickering, the hum of the freezers, and the echo of my steps bouncing off the linoleum floors. I'm Emma, a university student juggling between academics by day and managing the customer service desk at Walmart during the graveyard shift. This job was more of a necessity than a choice, with tuition bills demanding my undivided attention. The nightly ritual involved guiding the occasional insomniac customer, answering a few phone calls, processing orders online, and managing returns and exchanges. It was mundane and predictable, but it paid the bills. A fine compromise, I used to tell myself. What I didn't know back then was that this compromise was about to take a dark turn. During those hours when the clock flirted with midnight, the store transformed into a different realm. It was a sea of products, standing in perfect rows as if saluting the deafening silence. The aisles were ghostly empty, devoid of the daytime hustle. The once noisy customer service desk turned into a silent workstation with just me, my thoughts, and an ever-present faint scent of cleaning solution. Occasionally, I'd hear the ding of the entrance as a lonely customer wandered in, their arrival marked by the distant rustle of shopping bags and the shuffle of sleepless feet. But those sounds were fleeting, a brief disturbance in the night's stillness. The silence would soon claim its reign again, as it always did. The only consistent company I had was the store's telephone, a rather old model, the kind with a spiral cord that seemed like a relic from the past. The ringer was loud enough to wake the dead, a jarring contrast to the surrounding silence. Most of the calls were innocuous, a late-night inquiry about an item, an early supplier confirming delivery, and sometimes a wrong number dialed by mistake. I had grown accustomed to these, their predictability mirroring that of the job. One particular night, the sense of tranquility I'd come to associate with my shift seemed to develop to crack. It was subtle, not immediately noticeable, but it was there. The change was initiated by that old corded phone. It began ringing, piercing the silence, jolting me back from the verge of a daydream. Answering it was mechanical, a rehearsed motion born out of habit. But instead of the usual queries or confirmation, there was nothing. Just as I was settling into the night's rhythm, the phone rang again. This time, I paused, feeling a strange sense of apprehension. I picked up the receiver, and again there was only silence, a suffocating void that seemed to echo back at me. A chill ran down my spine, a creeping unease slowly sprouting within me. At first, I dismissed the calls as pranks, the work of bored teenagers looking for a cheap thrill. Maybe it was someone dialing the wrong number, repeatedly failing to realize their mistake. But with each call, the silence began to feel threatening, like an unseen entity lurking at the edges of my consciousness. As the hours ticked away, my calls became more frequent, their timing unnervingly consistent. It was as if the caller knew my routine, knew when I'd be the most vulnerable. The store's familiar silence now seemed deceptive, disguising the menace that lurked within each call. A chilling thought crossed my mind. What if the caller was someone watching me, waiting for my reaction each time the phone rang? Despite the gnawing unease, I tried to rationalize, to keep my growing fear at bay. Maybe it was a fault in the phone line or a technical glitch that caused the phone to ring without a caller at the other end. But this explanation felt hollow, a feeble attempt to deny the dread that was slowly taking root. Each time the phone rang, my heart would pound harder, the rhythmic thud echoing the jarring rings. The silence that greeted me on the other end of the line was suffocating, intensifying the disquiet that had settled over the store. It was no longer just a job, just a shift. It felt like a countdown to an unknown horror, each call's a tick of a monstrous clock. The late night shift, once conforming in its predictability, now hung heavy with tension. The store felt different. The aisles seemed longer, the shadows deeper. The innocuous humming fluorescent lights now seemed like harsh spotlights, leaving parts of the store in semi-darkness. The silence, once my friend, turned into a mocking foe, reminding me of my isolation. I could feel the dread creeping up, winding its icy fingers around my heart with every silent call. The solitude of the store was no longer a soothing balm. It was a stark reminder of my vulnerability, a stage for the chilling symphony of silent calls. After what felt like the 100th call, I summoned the courage to report the unnerving occurrences to my manager. His office was tucked away in a quiet corner of the store, filled with the conforming aroma of coffee and the soft hum of the old desk fan. Sharing my anxieties with him felt like a welcome reprieve from the chilling atmosphere that had taken over the customer service desk. "Could be a glitch in the phone line, Emma," he shrugged, his tone dismissive. His nonchalant reaction was a sharp contrast to the terror clawing at my insides. "Just keep working. They'll probably stop." With a heavy sigh, I returned to my station, hoping that he was right. But as I sat there, enveloped by the eerie silence, the phone rang again. A shiver coursed through me, the familiar jingle suddenly sounding more like a warning bell. With a trembling hand, I picked up the receiver and once again met with an ominous silence. On a hunch, I decided to check the caller ID, hoping to get some clue as to who could be behind these relentless silent calls. As I read the numbers, my heart sank into the pit of my stomach. The calls were coming from a number within the store. Cold dread washed over me, the realization hitting me like a freight train. This wasn't some random prank or a glitch in the phone line. Someone inside the store was making these calls, toying with me like a cat with a mouse. The store's familiar layout, which I knew like the back of my hand, now felt like a labyrinth hiding a predator. The hum of the air conditioning, the intermittent beep of the barcode scanner, and the low murmur of the few customers who trickled in late at night. The sounds that I had found comforting now took on a sinister note. They seemed to be part of a grotesque orchestra, playing the symphony of fear that was steadily crescendoing. The piercing ring of the telephone echoed through the now hauntingly quiet store, jolting me out of my thoughts. My heart pounded against my ribs like a drum as I slowly reached for the phone. A lump formed in my throat, the chilling dread from before now a terrifying reality. Picking up the receiver felt like lifting a 100-pound weight. I held it to my ear, my hand shaking, each beat of my heart echoing in my ears. The silence on the other end was deafening. It was as if the world had been swallowed by a void, and the only thing that existed was the silent anticipation of what was to come. Suddenly, a raspy voice broke through the silence, sending a chill down my spine. "Check aisle 5. It said, a soft, almost ghostly voice that was as terrifying as it was mesmerizing. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the voice was gone, leaving behind a silence that was even more unsettling. My mind raced, my thoughts spinning out of control as the gravity of the situation dawned on me. The once familiar store, with its neatly arranged shelves and bright fluorescent lights, was now a menacing labyrinth. Every aisle could be hiding a threat, every shadow a potential danger. "Aisle 5. I repeated to myself, my voice barely a whisper. That particular aisle was at the back of the store, tucked away behind rows of shelves filled with miscellaneous items. It was a place often overlooked by customers, its relative obscurity making it the perfect place for someone or something to hide. Thank you for venturing into the darkness with us. If you've survived the terror and want more, make sure to like, comment, and share this video. Until next time, sleep tight. And remember, some nightmares are too real.